Think you know ancient Persia? Well, get ready to question everything. Here are 5 Persian myths you've probably believed without even realizing it. Number 1. The Persians were just ruthless conquerors. Alright, let's kick things off with one of the biggest myths out there. That the Persians were just these brutal, sword-swinging conquerors who rolled through the ancient world like wrecking balls. Sounds dramatic, right? But completely wrong. See, under leaders like Cyrus the Great, yep, the same Cyrus known for the famous Cyrus Cylinder, often called the world's first human rights charter, the Persian Empire actually became famous for doing something almost unthinkable for ancient conquerors. They let people live their lives. Conquered regions could keep their own religions, languages, local leaders. Basically, Persia said, "Hey, you do you, just pay your taxes and don't rebel." In fact, it was one of the largest and most diverse empires the world had ever seen, stretching from modern-day Greece to India. The Persians didn't flatten cultures, they incorporated them. They built roads to connect people, established an early postal system, and let minority groups like the Jews return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temples. Big diplomatic moves instead of straight-up domination. So next time you hear Persian Empire, and imagine chaos and destruction, think again. This was more ancient diversity and inclusion than burn it all down. Persia wasn't perfect, but in the ancient world, it was closer to a global neighborhood than a military boot camp. Number 2. The Greeks were always the good guys versus the evil Persians. You've seen it in movies like 300, right? Lots of slow-motion action and dramatic speeches. But reality? Way more complicated. First of all, don't freak out, my Greek friends. This isn't about flipping sides or calling anyone the bad guys. We're not here to cheer for one team or trash the other. We're just here to lay out the facts. And one simple fact of history is, the people who write the story often shape how we remember it. Most of what we know about these wars comes from ancient Greek historians like Herodotus, who, of course, had their own perspective. In fact, although Herodotus is often called the father of history, he could just as easily be called the father of lies at times, because he wasn't exactly neutral. Imagine if your favorite sports team wrote the official match report. They might just forget to mention their fouls. So naturally, this paints the Greeks as noble defenders and Persians as over-the-top villains. But it's not the whole picture. In reality, Persian kings like Cyrus the Great, Darius the Fur, and even Xerxes weren't some kind of mustache-twirling villains. As we said earlier, Cyrus was famous for his respect towards the cultures and religions of conquered people. He even freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity, something the Bible itself praises him for. Darius built one of the most advanced administrative systems of the time, with infrastructure like the royal road and efficient postal systems. Even Xerxes, the supposed big bad guy in 300, was running an empire with incredible cultural diversity, massive architecture projects, and complex governance. Hardly a cartoon villain screaming in slow motion. And sure, the Greeks had their amazing accomplishments, philosophy, democracy, incredible art. But like every ancient society, they also had their darker sides, wars, rivalries, and their own political ambitions. The point here is simple. History is messy, and the version we often hear is the one that survived because someone powerful wrote it down. So next time you hear the old Greeks good, Persians bad story, remember it's a bit more nuanced than that. Number 3. The Persian Empire fell overnight after Alexander the Great arrived. Okay, next up, let's talk about one of the most common Hollywood-fueled myths out there. That the mighty Persian Empire just vanished overnight the moment Alexander the Great strolled in. The truth? Not so fast. While Alexander's military campaign did defeat the Achaemenid Empire, it's not like Persia just evaporated into thin air. What actually happened was way more complex. After Alexander's conquest, a lot of Persian administrative systems, cultural practices, and even local elites stayed right where they were. Only now they were under new management. In fact, Alexander himself admired much of Persian culture. He even adopted Persian dress at court, married a Persian noblewoman, and kept many Persian officials in place to help govern his massive new empire. After Alexander's death, his empire fractured, but Persian traditions kept flowing, especially under the Seleucid Empire, which blended Greek and Persian cultures. Later, the Parthians and Sassanids, successors to the ancient Persian world, rose up, proving Persia's legacy was anything but over. So nope, Persia didn't just collapse and disappear overnight. It adapted, it evolved, and it kept influencing the region for centuries after Alexander's dramatic entrance. Number 4. The Persian Immortals were literally immortal. Ah yes, the Persian Immortals. The name alone sounds like something straight out of a Marvel movie. 10,000 unstoppable warriors who couldn't die, right? Well, not quite. The truth is much less supernatural, but still pretty fascinating. The Immortals were actually an elite fighting force within the Achaemenid army, famous for their discipline, skill, and sheer presence. The name Immortals came from a very specific military practice. Whenever a soldier in this unit was killed, injured, or otherwise removed, they were immediately replaced. This way, their numbers were always kept at a constant 10,000. To outside observers, especially the Greeks who gave them this name, it seemed like their ranks never diminished, as though they were, well, immortal. But no, these soldiers didn't have superpowers. They weren't sipping magic elixirs or dodging death with some ancient cheat code. They were elite human soldiers, highly trained in combat, often armed with spears, swords, and bows, and known for their discipline and organization on the battlefield. Herodotus, the famous Greek historian, you remember the so-called father of history, is actually the one who popularized the term immortals. But modern historians debate whether the Persians themselves ever used this term, or if it was simply a mistranslation of their original name, which may have meant something closer to companions or followers. Either way, the myth stuck, and Hollywood didn't help. Looking at you, 300, by turning them into creepy, masked supervillains. In reality, the Immortals were more like a highly professional standing army, similar to royal guards or elite regiments in many ancient empires. Their immortality wasn't about magic, it was about administrative efficiency and military strength. Number 5. Zoroastrianism was a minor, obscure religion. Let's talk about a religion that doesn't always get the credit it deserves: Zoroastrianism. There's this common myth floating around that it was just some obscure, little-known cult on the sidelines of history. But that couldn't be more wrong. In reality, Zoroastrianism was one of the most influential belief systems of the ancient world. This wasn't some fringe philosophy whispered about in dark corners. It was the official state religion of the mighty Achaemenid Empire, which at its peak stretched from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. We're talking about an empire ruling over millions of people, governed by emperors like Cyrus the Great, and Darius, who proudly practiced Zoroastrianism. And here's the really cool part. Zoroastrianism had a massive cultural impact that stretched far beyond Persia's borders. Ideas that many people think came from much later religions, like the struggle between good and evil, angels and demons, heaven and hell, a final judgment day, were already central to Zoroastrian teachings centuries before Christianity or Islam ever appeared. Scholars have shown that these concepts influenced Jewish thought, especially during the Babylonian exile, which then rippled into Christianity and Islam. So in a way, the moral framework and cosmic narratives we're all so familiar with today were already being explored by ancient Zoroastrians thousands of years ago. And it wasn't just about theology. The Zoroastrians also had advanced ideas about environmental stewardship, truth-telling, and community ethics. Fire, for example, was a sacred symbol representing light, truth, and purity, which is why you'll see it featured so prominently in Zoroastrian temples or fire temples even today. Plus, Zoroastrianism was incredibly resilient. Even after the Islamic conquests, the religion didn't just disappear. Communities of Zoroastrians, known as Parsis, preserved their traditions, especially in India, and continue to practice it to this day. So no, Zoroastrianism wasn't some forgotten footnote in history. It was a powerhouse religion, with an influence that's still echoing in modern spiritual traditions. Oh, and yep, that's officially the end of our 5 Myths You Still Believe series. We really hope you had as much fun watching these videos as we had making them. If you enjoyed this ride through history's biggest misconceptions, don't forget to subscribe because we've got plenty more amazing stories, surprising facts, and hidden history gems coming your way.